Welcome everyone to another episode of Space City X-Files, where we delve into the darker corners of humanity to uncover the stories that often go untold. My name is Rick, I'm back, and today I'm your guide into the mysterious and often disturbing world of cults, coercion, and charisma gone awry. In this episode, we journey north to the vast wilderness of Canada, where a charismatic figure named Roch Thériault once established a commune under the guise of salvation. In the 1970s and 80s, Thériault led a group that became known as the Anthill Kids, a doomsday cult hidden away from society's prying eyes. Now, beneath the promise of spiritual enlightenment and community, there laid a horrifying underbelly of abuse, manipulation, and murder. Thériault's iron grip over his followers led them into a world of unspeakable horrors, showcasing the darkest side of what happens when power falls into the wrong hands. As we dissect this chilling narrative of the Anthill Kids, we aim to shed light on the warning signs and tactics of manipulation that allowed such a terrifying chapter to unfold. But be warned, this story is not for the faint of heart. It reveals the depths of human darkness and is a stark reminder of the fragility of freedom when faced with the dangerous allure of charismatic authority. With that being said, sit back, brace yourselves. This is Space City X-Files, episode 40, the Saga of the Anthill Kids cult. Before we continue with our investigation into the Anthill Kids cult, we'd like to take a moment to express our gratitude to all our listeners. At Space City X-Files, we strive to provide the best possible experience by keeping our episodes free of commercials and ads. We rely on your support to help us grow and reach more people who share our passion for uncovering the mysteries of the unknown. If you enjoyed today's episode, we kindly request that you take a few minutes to leave us a review on the platform that you're listening on. Now, we realize that you may not always be able to leave a written review, so if you can't, just leave a 5-star, or if you can't do that, all these episodes will be on social media. Pick one and hit share, and we'd appreciate it very much. Your feedback is invaluable in spreading awareness about the show and attracting those new listeners that we're searching for. Additionally, if you would like to make a monetary contribution to support the program, you can visit our website and click on the Support Us tab. Or you can scan the QR code on our image. There, it'll take you straight to the donation website. Every donation we receive goes directly towards enhancing the quality of our content and bringing us closer to doing what we love to do full time, which is put out amazing content that you love. We appreciate your consideration and ongoing support. Your involvement ensures that we can continue to deliver thought-provoking episodes like today's over this deadly cult. Thank you for being a part of Space City X-Files, and we look forward to bringing you more captivating content in the future. This will conclude today's announcements. To begin this story, let's first start with the personal background of who Roch Thériault is. I think that's the best place to start. Then we can move on to the details of the case, following it up with the impact that it had on the members. Then we'll wrap it up with some strange facts and theories and our own personal opinion on how cults are formed and how they manipulate. Now, Roch Thériault was born on May 16th, 1947 in Saguenay, Quebec, Canada. He was the second of 7 children born to Hyacinthe Thériault and Pierrette Thériault. His father was allegedly abusive, and his mother was an ardent follower of a Catholic sect known as the White Berets. This may have played into the part in Thériault's later religious fervor. Alright, despite his challenging upbringing, Thériault managed to perform well in school, showing intelligence and a penchant for leadership. However, his formal education ended at the age of 14 when he decided to drop out of school. In his late teens now, and early 20s, Thériault led a rather transient lifestyle. He moved around Quebec, taking various jobs, including lumberjack and salesperson. During this time, he was known for his charisma and persuasive speech, right? Everybody kind of really liked him and gravitated towards the guy. These are traits that he would later use to devastating effects during his leadership of the Ant Hill Kids cult. Now, in the late 1960s, Thériault became involved with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This Protestant sect had a focus on healthy living and the imminent second coming of Jesus Christ, themes that Thériault would later incorporate into his own teachings. All right, so he gleaned what he needed to here, and then later on his own, he kind of used these to, really poach members from his old church. His involvement with the church also exposed him to the idea of communal living, another concept he would utilize after he formed the Ant Hill Kids cult. Thériault's time with the Seventh-day Adventist Church ended in the mid-1970s when he was reportedly asked to leave due to his increasingly unorthodox beliefs and practices. Thériault believed in the doomsday theory so much that according to him, the world was on a crash course with a catastrophic biblical type of destruction. It was after this departure that he began to form his own religious group. And like we said, his charisma and his authority basically attract people from his old congregation. They formed in with him, and then the rest is history, right? That's how he got to start. All right. And now we're going to move on to our next section. Let's now take a detailed look at the creation and life amongst the Ant Hill Kids cult. So, back in the mid-70s, Roch Thériault managed to persuade a bunch of folks to pack up their lives, quit their jobs, and to follow him into his new religious movement. Now, this all kicked off in 1977 in a place called Sainte Marie in Quebec. Now, Thériault's vision was to create a commune where everyone could soak up his motivational talks, they'll live together in harmony and equality, singing Kumbaya and cleanse themselves of any sins, all that good stuff, right? Sounds great on the outside. Thériault was pretty strict, though, however, about keeping his followers away from their families and their old church members, and even their own church, the Seventh-day Adventists. As soon as they joined him, he didn't want them congregating or conversing with outside people anymore. He was all about freedom, he said, and outside influences didn't fit into that picture, okay? Now, around this time, Thériault's fears about the end of the world started ramping up. He was sure God had tipped him off that the apocalypse was due in February of 1979, so he set about preparing his followers for it. In 1978, to get ready for the big event, Thériault led his followers on a hike to a place he named Eternal Mountain, situated in Saint Georges in the pretty remote Gaspé Peninsula. If I'm saying these names wrong, I'm sorry. Bear with me. I'm not from Canada. But you get the idea. He was convinced that this was the place where they'd all find salvation, right? God spoke to him. Bring them over here and set up camp. Once there, he had his followers do all the hard work of building their town while he kicked back and relaxed, right? When they asked him what he was doing, he said he was talking to God. Don't question me, get back to work. You know, he compared them as he was watching them. He came to the idea, or compared them in his head to ants, busily working away on an anthill. And I know it's really original, but that's how they got their name, the Ant Hill Kids. When February 1979 came and went without an apocalypse in sight, people started to doubt old Thériault. But he was quick with the comeback, insisting that the time on earth and God's time just didn't match up, and that he'd made a simple miscalculation. Now, this is not too far a stretch in terms of religion. And I'm not going to go too far into this because, you know, we're not here to offend anybody or to make fun of anything like that. But in religion, in the Bible, it's pretty common knowledge that one day is like 1,000 years to God. And in different religions, that has been that same, I don't want to say excuse, but that same term has been used to really, it was made up. It's an excuse to say that this is why this didn't happen. All right, let's be real. I don't want to tiptoe around this too much. Not trying to offend you, but I know that for a fact. I've heard it before myself. So that's what he said to these people, and that's how he got them to believe him. Why they did, I don't know. Let's keep reading to find out. All right, so to keep the community growing and his followers loyal, Thériault ended up marrying and having kids with all the women in the group. So if he knocked them all up, got them pregnant, they're going to depend on him, of course, so they ain't going nowhere, right? So he fathered over 20 children with 9 of the women. And by the 1980s, the Anthill Kids cult had swelled to nearly 40 members. Everyone in the group wore identical tunics as a symbol of their equality and commitment to the cause. In 1984, the group upped sticks from Quebec and moved to a new spot near Burnt River in central Ontario, now part of the city Kawartha Lakes. Hope that's right. Shortly thereafter, the abuse became more prominent than what it already had been. What we're going to do now, we're going to move to our next segment, and we're going to take a look at some of the things that went down as far as abuse. We'll be right back. So, once the Anthill Kids were up and running, Thériault really started to change. This was the time where his dark side started to appear. As his drinking problem got worse, he became less of an inspiring leader and more of a dictator. Since he hadn't healed himself from his past trauma, I guess the abuse that was inflicted by his father started to come out and become more prevalent to the people that he was around. He started to control every aspect of his followers' lives, coming up with some really off-the-wall rules. He wouldn't let the members talk to each other when he wasn't around, right? Because he was paranoid. And he was even the one who decided when married couples could have sex. He had to be there, watching them, for it to be acceptable. Pretty crazy, right? That's not where it ends. As Thériault's behavior got more abusive and erratic, his charisma seemed to keep the followers from questioning him or blaming him for the physical, mental, and emotional harm he was causing. He spied on his followers and then claimed that God had told them that they were straying. And if anyone tried to leave, well, Thériault wouldn't have that. He'd hit them with a belt or a hammer or hang them from the ceiling or pluck out their body hairs one by one or even defecate on them. That's right. He was shitting on people. The group made a living during their time at the Anthill Kids cult by selling baked goods. How sad is that? They're working hard, making these goods, going out and selling them, all for this shit bag. And the bad thing is that anyone who didn't bring in enough cash got punished for it. And they faced a lot of the torture tactics that we just went over. As time went on, Thériault's punishments got worse. He'd make members, this is crazy, he made members break their own legs with sledgehammers or sit on lit stoves, shoot each other with guns in the shoulders, or eat dead mice and feces. So this guy was infatuated with shit for some reason. He even demanded a follower cut off another's toes with wire cutters as a twisted test of loyalty. Jesus. His horrific abuse also reached the kids in the cult. They were sexually abused, held over fires, or nailed to trees while the other children threw stones at them. One time, one of Thériault's wives left a newborn baby outside to freeze to death just to keep him away from the abuse of Thériault. Roch Thériault tried to go back to his original mission of purifying his followers using brutal purification sessions where he'd whip and beat them while they were naked. He claimed that he was a divine figure and even started doing unnecessary and dangerous surgeries on sick members to show off what he called his so-called healing powers, right? He did things like injecting a solution of 94% ethanol directly into their stomachs or performing circumcisions on the kids and adults. In 1987, a social worker removed 17 kids from the commune, but somehow Thériault avoided any consequences for his actions. Things took a horrifying turn in 1988 9 when one follower, Solange Ballard, came to him with a stomach ache, right? She just said, I got a simple stomach ache. And Roch's like, okay, let me work on you. So Thériault decided to perform yet another one of his God-inspired surgeries, this time without any anesthesia. He punched Solange Ballard in the stomach, gave her a crude enema, and even cut open her abdomen and ripped out parts of her intestines with his bare hands. He made another follower stitch her up and forced the women to try and help her breathe by blowing air down a tube in her throat. Poor girl survived the night, but she died the next day from her injuries, and even then, Thériault didn't stop. He drilled a hole in Ballard's skull and had the men, and himself included, ejaculate into it, claiming he could resurrect her. When she didn't come back to life, they just buried her body near the commune. Just threw it out like last week's garbage. As you can see, this was a very sick man. And you're probably wondering exactly what I was when I came to this point in the story during my research. When in the hell did someone put an end to this sick fuck's reign of terror? That's what we're going to find out next. Hang on a second. So the story continues when this woman named Leverly went through some pretty seriously grotesque, inhumane stuff at the commune in Ontario during the late 80s. This was the beginning of the end for Thériault. This was the same woman Thériault made his assistant on his so-called surgeries, right? So by this time, she had seen a lot of shit by that point. Now, she was being put through a lot of punishment herself at the hands of Thériault, right? Whenever she made mistakes or did something that he thought was wrong, she got beat for it. She was torched with the welding torch. He stabbed her in the back with the hypodermic needle and broke it off in her back. And Thériault even forcibly removed 8 of her teeth. When Thériault cut off part of her breast and bashed her in the head with an axe, this is the first time Leverly tried to escape. But she ended up coming back, and Thériault didn't take too kindly to that. Now, under the guise that everything was going to be okay, he was questioning her, seeing where she did, who she talked to, trying to figure out who she talked to. When she informed him that, I didn't talk to nobody, I just came back because I was scared, he accepted her back lovingly, put her hand on the table, and then chopped off her fingers with a meat cleaver. He stabbed her hand to a wooden table, stabbed her other hand to a wooden table with the knife all the way through, and then took the same cleaver and amputated her arm cleanly. Thériault's reign finally came to an end in 1989. Leverly managed to escape, and this time she got the police involved, which essentially marked the downfall of the Anthill Kids. All right. The local authorities had long been suspicious of what was going on in Thériault's cult, but because it was officially a church, they couldn't do much beyond ensuring the welfare of the kids. When Leverly came forward, Thériault was convicted of assault for cutting off her arm and got slapped with the 12-year prison sentence. 12 years for cutting off an arm, right? I mean, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, did they not ask anybody else any questions there? And it's easy to get caught up in this whole thing, like, and ask so many questions to yourself. Well, why didn't these people come out, or why didn't these people speak up? We got to do our best to kind of hold that back, because you don't fully understand what it's like to be in these situations unless you're there. I fully 100% understand that. So I'm not being critical of these people. I level with them. Here's the good thing though. After his arrest, most of the cult followers did ditch Thériault. All right, they left him. But even from prison, still, Even from prison, the guy managed to father 4 more kids with the remaining female members during conjugal visits. So not all of them left. They were still going back in hopes that one day he was going to get out of jail, come back, and they would start the cult up again. Leverly's report, though, also opened the door for further investigations into Thériault's heinous activities, revealing finally the wider abuses at the communes, and the murder of Solange Ballard. Now, this is what really got him. In 1993, Thériault was charged with second-degree murder for Ballard's death and sentenced to life in prison. In 2000, he was moved to Dorchester Penitentiary in New Brunswick, a medium-security prison. In 2002, they denied his parole request because he was still considered a risk to reoffend, and then he never applied again. All right? Get this. In 2009, Thériault tried to start selling his artwork on a U.S. website that called itself True Crime Auction House, right? And they were actually going to buy a shitload of his paintings. Like, they were like, yeah, this guy he's kind of a star, to these macabre groups, I guess you can say. The Canadian prison, however, though, thankfully stopped his works from leaving Dorchester Penitentiary and shut that whole thing down. All right, because the federal public safety minister at the time got wind of what was happening, and he wasn't too thrilled about Thériault trying to profit off his work. Now, if it would have been me, I would have let him do it, but the funds would have went directly towards his victims as restitution, right? I mean, give them something. Damn. Anyways, here comes the good part. Then in 2011, Thériault was found dead in his cell at the age of 63. Turns out his cellmate, Matthew MacDonald, who was already doing time for murder, was charged with the killing. MacDonald had stabbed Thériault in the neck with a makeshift knife. Then he casually walked over and handed it over to the guards and let them know what he had done. It was reported that the inmate walked over to the guards and said, "That piece of shit is on the ground over there dead. Here's the knife. I sliced him up pretty good." I guess he wasn't a fan of Thériault either. Alright, so if you care to watch the movie, I don't know why, but if you care to watch the live, basically, rendition of the story, or see the first-hand account, Thériault's horrific crimes were depicted in the 2002 film Savage Messiah. And then you can also check out a book that Gabrielle Leverly wrote. She wrote a memoir about her time in the sect, and it's called The Alliance of the Sheep. Alright, so before we wrap up this episode, let's look at the impact that this cult had on the lives of the remaining members. And then we'll also look at how cults exist in today's world. Alright? So, when the Anthill Kids cult finally dissolved, it wasn't exactly smooth sailing for the former members. So, you got to think, they were here sheltered or basically held captive, physically abused for all this time in this group. And then somehow they had to immediately just jump back into the world that was so different from when they started living, or for when they last lived in it. And they had to do it all with carrying these new deep physical scars and emotional scars that were inflicted on them by this crazy psychopath, right? Not easy. Not an easy thing to do. A lot of them, like Gabrielle Leverly, started speaking out about their experiences. She was able to do that. Not everybody is. Not everybody is able to talk about those things. They some wrote books or gave interviews talking about how they got, therapy and counseling to handle the emotional fallout from all the abuses that they'd gone through. And then there was another problem they had to go through. It was the workforce, right? They've been out of it for so long. And it was super tough for them to just hop back in it. They had, even though they were here in this cult, they were basically, working together to make ends. And they had, I guess, the basic necessities like food. I don't believe they had like running water or anything like that. So, here they are now they're on their own. They got to work for what they got. Some of these people are with children, and it's not like he's providing for them. So, here they are, single parents at the same time. So it's really tough. And as far as society, well, it didn't always make things easy for them. Now, this was something that happened in Canada. It wasn't in the U.S., but still, from where they were, it was kind of a big deal, and everybody knew about it. So a lot of these people faced judgment, or they got labeled because of their past in the cult, whether they went through abuses or not. People just can automatically say, oh, well, why were you there in the first place? And look at you, look down on you, look at you with disgust and stuff like that. And that's exactly what they face, unfortunately. And lastly, let's not forget about the kids that were born into this mess, right? There's a lot of children involved. And as they grew up, they had to grapple with the understanding of what a normal family relationship actually was, or even societal norms, having friends, having relationships, and even figuring out what was real or not. Their whole time they're thinking, is the world going to end? Is it not going to end? Am I going to go to hell? Am I going to go here or that? All because of the messed up worldviews that the Roch had pushed onto them. So in short, after leaving the cult, all these members were on this complex journey of trying to heal and get their bearings back and reclaim their identities. It's a big reminder how they were the victims here, caught up in a really bad situation. Let's go to our next segment. All right, so that brings us close to the conclusion here. All right, so now the big question: how does someone even end up in a cult, right? Well, let me tell you, it's not like somebody standing out there with a big old sign, waving in front of you saying, hey, join my dangerous cult. Everything's gonna, we're here to hurt you and take advantage of you and this and that. But that's not the way it works, right? That's not the way these charismatic leaders work. It's just not that way. These groups often start off seemingly like they found a place to belong, or they offer a clear purpose. What's the meaning of life? Well, we're here to show you what the meaning of life is. All you have to do is join us, commit yourself to us. What's the meaning of life? What are the mysteries of life? How did we get here? Where are we going? These people claim to have those answers. And I'm not grouping them in with religious organizations. No, I'm not talking about that. These are actual cults, right? And I'm talking about violent ones, all right? So I'm not, to each their own. If you want to join something like that, that's fine. I know there's a lot of gray area of what can be considered a cult. But to, I guess, sift through all that and just stick to the topic that we're on, this is dealing with ones that are violent, that are causing self-harm, that erase everything there is about you, that controls you, that manipulates you. That's what we're talking about in this situation. But still, they can use things, and they use things to lure you, and they don't come right out off the bat and tell you that this is the way it's going to be. All right? So they're often just looking for simple, normal things, right? Not really understanding or realizing the darker side that's hidden underneath. Now, once someone's in a cult, it's not always so simple to just pack up and leave. Normally, you took a big leap to get there. Depending on the type of person that they're preying on, this could have took everything that this person had, every ounce of confidence and energy that this person had inside them to take this leap, and maybe they don't have anymore. They left their area. They never thought that they can leave the area they were. They did. Now they're here, only to be in a worse situation. And it's not easy for them to just pack up and leave now. Now, you would think that when things started to get dangerous, or weird that they would head for the door. But that is not the case. It isn't. For one, cult leaders are okay, like we've seen with Roch Thériault. They use manipulation and fear to keep their members in line. Right? Even physical abuse. They might make them feel guilty, scared about what will happen if they leave. Plus, the longer someone's in a cult, the more isolated they usually become from their old life, right? They're not talking to it could be years since they talk to their family members or friends, or like Thériault and the Anthill Kids cult. They even moved locations, so nobody knew where these people were. Nobody from their old church, none of their old friends. And that's happens really a lot in the cults. Like we mentioned, they might be cut off from their friends, family, or anyone who isn't part of the group. So even if they wanted to leave, they might feel like they have nowhere else to go, no one else to talk to, none of that. Isolation. And on top of all that, there's a thing called cognitive dissonance to consider. Now, this is when someone's beliefs conflict with reality, causing a kind of mental anguish. To ease this, people often start to rationalize their situation. Kind of like Stockholm syndrome, right? The captor becomes the nurturer or the hero, right? That's all part of mental abuse, mental manipulation. In the case of a cult, they might convince themselves that the leader's actions are justified or that things just aren't as bad as they seem. So, all in all, while it might seem clear-cut to us on the outside, for some caught in the grip of the cult, it's a much more complex and difficult situation to deal with. Now, typically around this time, we give our response on what we think happened in the case of the Anthill Kids cult. Well, that doesn't really apply here because of the topic, right? We already know what happened. This is all fact. There's nothing to speculate about here. We know that cults are real, not just this one, but we know there's a lot of them that exist. We know that they can be dangerous. So there's really nothing, like I said, nothing to speculate about on this topic. So in lieu of a summary, we'll give more of a public service announcement. All right. This is for all the people out there that may have themselves in a situation like this. So we say, if you find yourself caught up in a situation that feels a lot like a cult, I've got just a few words for you. First off, know that it's okay to question things. It's always okay to question. Question everything. It's completely normal, in fact. If something doesn't feel right, it's important to pay attention to that feeling. Trust your gut. You know, if you believe in a creator, if you believe in a grand designer, or if you just believe in human instinct, you have that conscience, you have that gut feeling, you have your intuition for a reason. It was developed through years and years and years of human existence to keep us safe. And so when you have that feeling that something is not right, or something's wrong, or something just feels off, then that's usually because it is. And that usually means, even if you're not 100% sure, this brings us back to our first point. It's okay to question. Question until you find out and convince yourself that I'm safe. So the first one is question things. The second one is trust your gut. Okay? Trust your intuition. Secondly, remember that true belonging and community does not require you to give up your own thoughts, belief, or autonomy. A healthy group leader, or just a healthy group in general, will respect your individuality and not demand you surrender it, right? It's like fall in line and get in line. That's not what it is. Or they try to give you a new name or cut you off from different people. cutting you off from a certain different people, telling you what to watch, telling you this and that, this and that. Those are dangerous things, right? Why do I need to change everything about me that makes me me? That's not natural, right? And especially if they demand for you to do it. Next, don't let anyone use fear or guilt to manipulate you or control your actions. All right? You have the right to live without fear, and you should be free to make your own decisions without feeling guilty or being coerced. Right? You have that ability. If you're here in the United States, this is still a free country, and you have the right to say or do what you want to do, say what you want to say, or be where you want to be. And if you have somebody trying to gaslight you or make you feel guilty or physically harm you, well, then you know that that's not right. If you find yourself listening to this somehow and you're in this situation, you know that that's not right. You know it. Trust your gut. Reach out to those outside the group. If you find yourself isolated and you think to yourself, when's the last time I ever talked to somebody outside this group? When's the last time I ever hung around with somebody that I didn't live with, or or that's not part of us? Has that happened? If you answered no, then that can be a problem. That can be a problem. Especially if you're being demanded, or basically you're being instructed to not talk with anybody outside the group. Not a good thing. Even if it feels like you're alone, remember that there are people out there that genuinely care about you and want to help you. If they find out what kind of situation you're in, there are people out there that are ready to step up, that are ready to help you, that will make moves for your benefit. Even if you're too scared, they'll do the hard work for you. Believe me, they're more than willing to. You'd be surprised what a stranger would do for you if they find out that you're being abused and in trouble. I'm not talking about violence or anything like that, even though I'm sure there's some out there that would be willing to do some of that too. But honest help that's going to set you on the right path. That's what you want, right? And there's people out there that'll do that. They'll fight for you. Whether it's a trusted friend, a family member, or a professional, don't hesitate to seek support. You should always have a circle. In life, you should always have a circle. Try to make your circle as big as possible. And your circle should be diverse. Not just one certain group. And not forcibly made to have it in a small group, right? Because the bigger group you have, the more people you're talking to, the more diverse opinions that you have and ideas. And it really opens you up. It opens you up. Keeps you from getting closed in, right? Or keeps you from being placed in a box. Life is better outside the box, right? So seek support. Don't hesitate. Lastly, it's crucial to remember that leaving may be hard, but it's not impossible, right? You can leave. You have the courage. There's people that'll help you. Remember that. There are resources out there designed to help get you out of those situations. Like I said, they'll make a lot of the moves for you. Don't be afraid to use them. Sometimes it's just a phone call away. And last of all, remember, don't ever forget that your life is your own. Don't let anyone take that away from you. You deserve respect. You deserve freedom. And most importantly, you deserve safety. Those are your God-given rights. You deserve that. Stay strong and take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And on that note, that's going to be the end of today's episode. Yeah, I know this one was kind of tough, but I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you leave feeling just a little bit more educated on these real life situations that people find themselves in year after year. And you look at the day and age that we're living in. You say it's 2024. How are things like this still going on? Well, you'd be surprised to learn that it's actually increased, especially during times like COVID. Right? All of this increased or made it like a resurgence, right? And it's happening all over the world. It's happening all over the world. And we cover this case, like we said before in many of our true crimes episodes, we cover this case to not glorify this guy, Roch Thériault, to not glorify the things that happened to the Anthill kids. But it's more to bring awareness and to show that, charismatic people are just natural charismatic sometimes. But if that is twisted, or if they know how to manipulate, or if their intentions, it's all about intentions. If their intentions are evil, then they can do evil things. And they can use their strength to bring serious harm onto people and inflict serious harm on them, like we've heard in this case. And that's why we cover these things, to bring awareness to it. Once we bring awareness to it and more people hear about it, it spreads, the story spread. It'll bring vindication to people that suffered things like this. Like as more of these cults start to go away, hopefully one day as awareness grows, maybe we won't have this issue anymore. It's kind of wishful thinking, I know, because man, are they entrenched into societies. But we don't give up hope, right? There's always hope that things are going to get better, that people are going to wake up. And that's the reason why we cover these things, If there's just one chance that we reach somebody, that our message got through to them somehow. And I know it's a far shot that they're even listening to this episode, because, I'm sure if they're in a cult, people don't want them listening to a conspiracy theory show or UFO show or any kind of show like that. But who knows, maybe by just some chance, they got a phone, or it just came up on them. Miracles happen every day. And they hear this, and it happens to be exactly what they needed to hear, to take action, to move. And if that's what it can do, then if there's just a small little chance, then we're gonna do that. We're gonna cover these topics specifically for that reason, right? So that's why we do it. If you did appreciate the content, we ask that you take a few minutes after the conclusion to leave us that short review or the thumbs up. If you can't do either one of those, I know that some platforms don't allow you to do that. I think Spotify only allows for like a star rating, and then I think Podbean is only like a star rating too. But all these episodes are shared to our social media. If you're not following us on our social media, we got Facebook, we got X, Instagram, TikTok, Truth Social, all those things. You can go to our website and just go to the latest episode, or which episode was your favorite, whichever one. Just hit share to feed, and that's equivalent to giving us a 5-star rating or a written review. And why is that? Well, because it's going to be posted for everyone to see. That's more eyes. That's more views to the more activity the algorithms are going to see. And algorithms control the internet, right? All of these sites have algorithms. How often are people interacting with your website? How often are they liking it? How often are they leaving comments? Once it sees that those type of activities are increasing, well, then they're going to give you more impressions. They're going to put you in more categories and more search results. And that's how word starts to spread, So you leaving those things for us, it's going to help us reach that point. And, don't feel like we're trying to pressure you into leaving a certain type of review. We love constructive criticism also. So if you have any recommendations on what we can do to get better, then write that down there too. If you say, hey, you need to cover these topics, you need to cover this, or your shows need to be longer or shorter, or whatever, just put that on there. Like I said before, we're all adults. We got thick skin. You're not gonna hurt our feelings, and so it'll only just be helping us get better. So that being said, can't thank you enough for all your support. We love you guys dearly, all of you, all over the world, and I hope to see you again next week for another thought-provoking episode, another topic, just to give you a little glimpse of what we're doing. We're going to be doing a true crime case, and it's going to be over the unsolved case of Don Henry and Kevin Ives. This case is pretty damn interesting. I can't go too far into it because I'll just want to tell you the whole thing right now, so I'm not going to do that. But there was two boys that were found on a train track, dead. Conductor almost ran over him. I think he even did. But he said they were just laying on the tracks. He was blowing the horn at them. They wouldn't move. They said, "Man, what the hell?" So they investigated the crime scene. They found a little bit of dope on them or something like that. So they tried to chalk it up to like, oh, well, they were just high and they passed out on the tracks. Not an open and shut case. Not by far. All right. They started going more into the case. They started looking at people who were in the area. They started looking at the toxicology reports. They started looking at the autopsy doctor, and they found out a lot of discrepancies in the reports. When they started digging more into it, they found out that this doctor was tied into, man, I don't want to give it away, but he was tied into a very, very important politician in Arkansas. I'm not going to name drop. You're going to have to be here next week to find out. But, he was a president, and his wife's name rhymes with Killary. All right? So, anyways, you're not going to want to miss it. So make sure you be here, because it's going to be a hell of an episode. Until then, this is Rick on behalf of the Space City X-Files signing off. Until we meet again, keep questioning, keep listening, and keep exploring, my friends. Thank you for joining us today. We love you, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Space City X-Files. Goodbye.